Spending season is here, but I'm here to tell you that maybe you should just keep your hard-earned cash. And I do have a couple of solutions to actually see if the price is good. Today, I'm reducing my workshop to only 10 tools. The tools I can't live without. And to prove it, I'm making something using only those 10 tools. And I'm trying a different way of drying wood. But I'll also be telling you what I wouldn't buy if I had the chance again, like this. Because there are some tools in here that were so expensive to buy and I've only used a few times. There's actually a tool in here that I spent $5,000 on and I've only used it 8 times. 8 times! And the thing already needs new gear. This video is sponsored by PCBWay. Any type of planer thicknesser would do, but even if you can get wood that's been pre-milled, I wouldn't trust it to be just that, and this is my way of woodworking. You could also get around with hand tools, but I'm not that guy. This particular one is from Axminster, but if I were to buy one today, I would probably opt for something with helical blades rather than this. But this works fine, and I rely on being able to get my material milled before I start. A couple of things to go with your planer thicknesser though is a good square. No need to flatten your things if you're not sure it's actually milled properly. But also something you might already have if you have a planer thicknesser is dust collection, of course. Another item is something to clean the beds with, because whenever they get thick with crap from the wood, it won't slide as well and I need to grease it up a bit. I usually just clean the beds with some WD-40 and then I apply some beeswax. You can also get by with a simple thicknesser, but I like the ease of use of this one and converting it doesn't take much time at all. This one was about $1,200 back when I bought it in 2021, and this version doesn't exist anymore. The cheapest one that is similar to mine from that same company is now $1,800. Yeah, inflation is real. Next up is the Caliper, a digital one. But get a good one. I've had a couple of calipers over the years and many of them have had issues. So when I finally decided to spend a bit more, I bought this. And it's been serving me really good for a long time now. I keep one in my workshop and one that basically follows my laptop. It's just a very handy tool to have both when woodworking but also when modeling. And of course a great thing to have to make sure you have the wood down to the thickness you were aiming for. Now this piece of walnut is spot on, so I can get started with my next tool. A table saw, any capacity. But it remains one of my most used tools in the workshop, as you will see in this video. I don't even have a crosscut sled for it, but I mainly use this miter gauge from Hongdoi on it. But when I started out, I used a DeWalt one for the longest time and it really worked well for me, so it doesn't need to be a cast iron one, like this Laguna saw. Now this table saw was something that I had my eyes on for a long time. I saved up money and eventually I bought it. For me, from Sweden, the cheapest option was actually to buy it from a European store rather than here in Sweden. And a quick opinion on this is that it's great. The dust collection could be better, but it's also kind of my fault for not using the plastic hood. That would probably help a bit, but it's annoying and in the way and I don't like it. But it's been reliable, it's a workhorse with 3 horsepower and I love it. Keeping the cast iron clean though, that's a pain in the absolute bottoms. To split the wood, I could of course use the table saw, but my bandsaw has a thinner blade. But I could live without the bandsaw. I could live with that loss, if I had to. It's the same as kids. Love them to death, but you don't need. Next up, tape measure. There are plenty of measuring tools out there. Mostly I actually use a folding ruler, but that's just because it's what I grew up using. But I find myself reaching for the tape measure more and more. And any tape measure will probably do, but I really like this one from the Swedish company Hultafors. It seems very accurate and high quality. But this one looks even better. Anyway, everyone has a tape measure, but a quality one is what I would go for. With the lumber milled and measured, I could revisit the table saw for some dados for the box bottom and lid. But I also wanted this box to have rounded corners. So I had some strips cut that I could place in the corners of the box vertically and maybe get a good effect from that. There was just one thing I kind of didn't think about at this point. To attach the pieces together, I could have used a domino, a special tool that I just love using for its ease of use and the ease of glue-ups. But I'm making a small box and I'll be cutting it apart, and I was scared that would expose the dominoes. So instead, I decided to again use the table saw and cut dados in both the corner pieces and the walls of the box, and just add a thin strip of plywood to connect the box with. And here's my mistake I mentioned. I didn't really think about how they would come out the top of the box. I'm not sure why I didn't consider it earlier, but I decided that would have to be a feature, an ugly feature. In woodworking, there's always need for new things to achieve what you want. But sometimes you just have the things you need. For this project, I wanted to try something out that I've just seen done but never tried myself. I have this piece of chestnut, or at least I think it is. But the moisture of it's high. Well, I don't have any way of drying this, except for an oven. So I decided to do an experiment. Could I use this piece of wood for the lid of the box? I placed the wood in the oven at a temperature of 90 degrees Celsius. After an hour, I measured the moisture and it had gone down a bit, but I decided to mill it closer to the actual thickness I needed and try the oven again. This time I placed it in the oven for 2 hours. I kept a small wedge on the oven lid so any moisture released could get out. Then I turned the oven off after 2 hours and had the wood stay in the oven to cool down slowly. It was a bit skewed at this point, but it was a lot drier and ready for use. So I guess the oven works well for smaller pieces. And when my lid was milled and cut to size, I could get to the next tool I can't live without. Clamps. All sorts. More clamps. More clamps. You always need more clamps, and I don't even have that many of them. You need clamps more than you need love. More than you need food. Just get good clamps rather than crap ones. I have many crap ones and they just don't work that well. Many of them just give up. Now that my box is in glue, let's look at something I really don't need. The tool that I spent so much money on but only used 8 times is this. Well, it's this, the Shaper Origin. I've barely used it at all because I rarely find a use case for it. And after saving up that amount of money just to get this, I would have hoped to use it more. I'm not saying it's a bad machine, I just haven't used it that much. But as it is right now, I also have this small CNC that I can use for basically the same things. So if it was today, I wouldn't have bought it. That's not saying that you don't need it or want it. It's still a good machine, but I don't use it. Anything I do always seems to turn into materials sport. And it's been the same with woodworking. I constantly look at new things that could up my woodworking, but the truth is, I have everything I need to accomplish what I want. And I could do without a lot of the tools I have as well. Here are some other things I bought that I rarely use. This Triton oscillating spindle and belt sander, really good, but basically never use it. The Bosch drill press, really like it, never really use it. Oh, and this is an expensive one, the Tormek T8. Although it isn't the tool that you use that much anyways, but I've only used it once. I should probably use it more though. You almost fall into some kind of FOMO during Black Friday and Christmas sales, which of course is the intention. You don't want to miss out on some steel that someone else is getting their filthy hands on, but that's when you kind of end up with stuff you actually don't need. Believe me, I've learned this the hard way. But what I do is whatever purchase I'm doing, I put them in the basket and wait to see if there will be a deal or not. That way I know I'm buying things that I intended to buy even if there was no sale. It prevents me from doing this spontaneous purchase. And most of the time, if you watch carefully, some of the prices actually go up just before the sales and then drop down again. And there are actually tools online that can help you search back and see what the prices have been throughout the year. The holiday sales are just manipulative marketing tactics that I think we need to be cautious with. That's it. I think it's time to explain what this project actually is. Lately, my daughters have gotten to an age where they really enjoy playing cards, and so do I. I'm over the point of 8-piece puzzles and playing games where you just rely on luck. We have been playing a lot of cards and I want to give them a gift of a deck of cards in a box. It's as simple as that. Which brings me to my next piece of equipment. The 3D printer, and any 3D printer would probably do. But I couldn't live without them because they are what I use not only to print what's available online, but also what I make myself. I have a favorite, of course. This is a bed slinger from Bamboo Lab. It's really good and very affordable to what you actually get. But maybe you would prefer something like this that looks like a spider inside and prints on a round plate. This one is from FLSun. It's quite good, but it's loud. You think that's loud? I'm not even printing. Actually, the Creality is doing a self-check right now, so it's quite loud, but just let me turn on the cooling on this one to 100%. Yeah. It's like it's preparing for takeoff. I've been accustomed to having a 3D printer and I use mine almost every day. So for this project, I just wanted the deck of cards to have somewhere to go inside of the box. So I modeled and printed just that. Maybe you're feeling like, oh, come on, stop yapping about 3D printers. But maybe sometime you would actually want to print something yourself without having a 3D printer, and I'm here to tell you that's possible through the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. Go to PCBWay.com, upload the STL file that you downloaded from somewhere, and have them make it and ship it to you. It's that easy, it's incredible. And not only 3D printing, they can also do the PCBs and PCB assemblies for you, but also CNC milling and even injection molding. So give PCBWay a visit. There's a link down in the description for a $5 welcome bonus. Thanks PCBWay for sponsoring today's video. The idea with this box is to round over the corners, and for that I use the next tool, the router table. I made this router table a while back, and I don't think you need a router table to get on. It's a luxury that makes life easier. I mean, you can make a very basic router table or just clamp your router in a vise upside down, even though I wouldn't advise it. This was something I spent a lot of money on, but it works so well and I'm really happy I have it. For this roundover, I'm using a roundover bit and I just let the router do the job. Next up is a sander. You need at least one sander. Any sander would do. You can hand sand, but the bigger the project, the tougher it is. I've had a bunch of sanders through the years. I bought this one from Festool last year and I rarely touch the other ones I have. The orbital sander has some advantages. For one, it doesn't matter which direction you sand in, which helps a lot. Then it was back to the table saw to rip the box in two. I usually do 3 sides, then tape the gaps before doing the last rip. That way I prevent it from collapsing and ruining the cut. Before I go any further though, there's one tool I just love, and it's this, the brad nailer. Although I didn't use it for this project, I use it all the time, and this one from DeWalt is a really good machine. I have used this so much since getting it. It's just a great brad nailer. And I thought I didn't need it because I had this other one that just connected to my compressor. Well, I don't really have room for a compressor right now, and the one from DeWalt lasts a really long time on one battery as well. So if anything, I wish I'd bought this much sooner. Another tool I didn't use that much in this project are my chisels. And I'm not a hand tool guy, I'm more of a least resistance kind of guy. But if there's one thing I like, it is a good set of chisels, and this set has been recommended to me before, and that's why I got it. They're fairly inexpensive and really easy to sharpen. And I actually received this jig from Hongdoi that seems perfect to use with whetstones or diamond stones. You can measure the angle with this piece that came with it and then go to town with the actual jig. It has the option to keep the chisels in place and offset the angle for a second bevel built in. And because it has the wheel underneath, it's easy to use without the wheels running off the sharpening stone. As a bonus, I like tools that give me opportunity. A laser is such a tool. I'm not done with this box just yet. I want to engrave the lid, and that's why I didn't give the lid a finish just yet. I use this Aeon Mira 7S laser right now, but I've used a bunch of other lasers in the past. They just give me the ability to do what I want. And if you're interested further in the Mira 7S, I have a video all about its capabilities. And for the box, I wanted to engrave the lid with something that gives a sense of what's in the box, a spade. Then I filled that spade with milliput, which I think is a really good alternative to epoxy, which takes forever to dry and can bleed into the grain around the engraving. This is rock hard in a couple of hours and sands off easily. And as a complement to the box, I also had the laser cut a piece of leather that I used another special tool that I probably won't use much that presses gold foil into leather. So I gold foiled the leather and then I could glue that into the lid of the box after giving the entire box a nice finish of Rubio Monocoat Oil Plus 2C Pure. And with some hinges and a lock, that concludes the card box. I did use more than 10 tools, but only to create the extra luxury I wanted. And of course, a special set of bicycle cards went into it.